So, without further ado, to those of you watching right now, hello and welcome to another discussion about Savannah College of Art and Design. Today, I'm joined by Ben Felker, Melanie Ho, Lauren Skillen, and Mark Sunderland, and we're going to talk about what it's like to be a film and television major at SCAD. Except nobody ever says the full title, it's just film, right? I don't know.
Film and television production.
Yes.
Say that, I think.
Too long.
No.
And shout out to the fact that we have some siblings on the show. We have Mark Sunderland, who we talked to Kyle earlier for the illustration one, and another Skillen is among us. Whoa.
Whoa.
The best. Too much sass. But anyway, as always, I'll have some topics that we'll go through, and then we'll move over to a question and answer session at the end. If anybody has any questions, you can type them in the chat over on YouTube if you're watching. And yeah, I think we'll get started. So you guys can go ahead and introduce yourselves. You can tell us who you are and when you attended SCAD, and then what you're working on currently. So we'll go alphabetical, I guess. Ben, we'll start with you. Who are you?
Hi, I'm Ben. I guess I graduated SCAD 2010, not 2010, 2014, and I'm still in Savannah while my girlfriend finishes up at SCAD, and then I am out to the West Coast.
Ooh.
I am a director of photography by trade.
And yeah, for the record, he's not Allie. I know it's going to flash up saying he's Allie. Or you can be Allie today.
I'll be Allie.
That's totally okay. Okay, Lauren, who are you?
Hi, I'm Lauren. I graduated from SCAD just this past June 2015. I concentrated in producing, and I'm now in LA working for a commercial and music video production company.
Oh, that wasn't alphabetical. Oh, well, Mark.
Oh, my next? Okay. I'm Mark Sunderland. I finished SCAD in 2014, and I am in Atlanta, and I'm a cinematographer with Local 600, Local 479 in Atlanta, and aspiring to direct.
And Melanie.
Hi, I'm Melanie. You can call me Mel. I graduated just this past November in 2015, and I just moved to DC. I literally got here like a few days ago. I'm like staying in someone's house. Yeah, and I'm interning with a media company, and my friend is like the one who runs the company. It's like client by client media work, so I'm like interning with her and looking for something else film related here too. So yeah.
Awesome. So we'll move into some of the questions that I have. One that everybody always wants to know is, so what are some of the classes that you start with your first quarter, and what do you have to look forward down the line? Like, how does an overview of the curriculum go? Ben, could you tell us about that?
Yeah, most of what you're going to do your first quarter is stuff that they assign you into, and it's not really going to be super major relevant, but it's sort of good foundation building classes and whatnot. It's like drawing and 3D design and stuff like that. And then from that, eventually, you'll get into like your actual major classes after about 2 or 3 quarters, depending on how short your attention span is.
Yeah, I don't think that I dived into the film department until, I really don't think it was, maybe it was the end of my freshman year, or maybe even the first quarter of my sophomore year. You really have to get a lot of the foundations, prereqs out of the way before you can get into your film classes.
Yeah, how many drawing classes do you have to take? Because I know people get nervous about that. They think that because they don't have a drawing major, they can just automatically go do something else. But, aha, surprise, you actually have to draw forever. Do you have to take, I know you have to do drawing 1 and then design 1, but then do you guys do like a drawing 2 class? I know you don't do live drawing.
Mm-hmm. You have to do drawing 2 and 3D design. I think are the 4 sort of ones.
And color theory.
Color theory, yeah. My color theory professor let me make movies and like grade them artistically for a project, so that wasn't even that bad.
I think it might have changed. Well, I don't know. Maybe it was just different at the Hong Kong campus. I'm pretty sure I had to take, I took life drawing. I took like drawing 1, 2, design 1 and 2, 3D color theory, and life drawing.
Life drawing, I don't think was required, but it might have been a home.
It could, no, I don't think it was required. I think maybe I hadn't declared my major yet, and a lot of other majors you have to do it.
I think most other majors require life drawing.
That's that's probably what it
Film
was.
majors used to have to take it, as far as I understand.
Yeah.
I think it's like 2010 or something they stopped it.
Yeah,
Just
or
in
there
time.
was, yeah. Or something. Yeah.
Which of those classes did you think was most difficult for you guys? Did any of you go into it having more drawing experience, or was it all kind of just like pulling teeth because that wasn't what you were going to major in?
I think it's different for every person, really. Like, I've heard a lot of film majors say that they would rather die than do drawing classes, just because they're terrible at it, so they don't even care. Or, but for me, I like to draw. I don't know. I like to draw, so I enjoyed my drawing classes. I still draw, so it depends on the person, I think. I don't know about you guys.
I'd rather have my eyeballs pulled out, personally. Oh, man. I hate drawing. I hate it so much. So much. It was awful. Drawing and color theory. Drawing and color theory, like, would basically consisted of me walking around my apartment trying not to punch walls at 4 o'clock in the morning with Kyle just on the couch like, can I just do it for you? I'm like, no. Yeah.
No,
I love teachers.
Yeah, are some of the teachers pretty lenient then? Do they try to work with you like, oh, I know that you're not going to have drawing as part of your major, so you can do more film-related projects? Like, Ben, you said you were able to. Did you guys have that option at all, or were your teachers like, no, this is important?
It's about 50-50, I think. I had one teacher who graded us, I think, harder because we were film students.
Oh, good.
This is a personal affront to real art.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I hadn't, like, I was at the Hong Kong campus. They don't even have film there, but I enjoyed drawing. So I think every professor can kind of sense your motivation level, and, like, I really cared about it. So, like, my teacher was, like, helping me improve and, like, you know, not super hard on me because I had, like, really good drawing people in my class, but like, in, I think, design 1 for some reason was the hardest of all of my foundations for me because I'm just like not a graphic. I don't know, it was very like flat and I don't work well. I was like, I don't know, it looks good, like I don't know. And I think my professor was kind of like, okay, this is not your thing, and like would be a little more lenient with me. So I think it depends on if, like, how much you show you care and if you want to be pushed. But I mean, that depends on the professor as well.
I agree, though, Mel. I was in a very similar situation with a professor. I obviously wasn't the best drawer in the class, but yeah, I think if you put in the effort, they want to nurture that.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you don't want to put in the effort, they probably see that.
Yeah, exactly.
And they're like, okay, this one's a goner.
It's okay. Yeah, like this is
it's okay. Yeah, exactly.
I remember I took color theory from the most wonderful woman, Lois. Lois, what's her last name? Gerber, I think is her name. She's a sweet woman. And she came over, she was looking at my thumbnails, and I took this class with Kyle, which was awesome. So we're sitting next to each other. And Lois is like looking at my thumbnails. I'm just trying to get out of here. And she goes, you know, Mark, I think you need to do some more drawings. And Kyle leans over, he doesn't need to do any more drawings. He doesn't need to do any more drawings. He does not need to do any more drawings. And she goes, oh, well, then I like that one.
Case in point.
Lois.
It was awesome. Lois is the best. This is hysterical.
I have to say, though, in defense of drawing, it's great. Lisa, I think you're amazing. You do wonderful work. But also, is it not really handy for storyboarding for film? Anybody?
Oh, absolutely, I bet.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I just describe it to somebody else.
That's funny, because I really didn't realize how easy I would have it then, like, since I'm going to be drawing for the rest of my life anyway, at a table, dying, that it would be like, oh, even the foundation stuff is still, like, directly applying to what I'm doing right now. I will never do anything with oil paint again. I will never do anything with Conte crayon again, because I have this red pigment permanently in my nose, so it looked like I had cracked blood leaking out, like, all the time. Oh. But luckily, Foundations is only a couple quarters then. So once you get into your major, what parts of film do you get to explore? I mean, it's obviously not just movie making. What are some other things that you get to do in your major that aren't just movies or just for TV?
Well, you have this sort of, what's it called? Where you run through like intro to film.
It's like a core. It's like a core.
Yeah, it's like a core, and then it branches from there. So you have like intro to film, pre-production, and do you take intro to sound before or after lighting and field, or does it matter?
It doesn't matter.
Okay, but you take those four, and then you take lighting and field production techniques, which is basically like go out in the field and shoot movies. Here's a bunch of equipment, go for it, kids. And then after that, you sort of branch off into whatever your sort of specialty is. If you're a cinematographer, you start taking advanced lighting, and more advanced. If you're an editor, you start taking post-production class. Like more focused post-production classes, stuff like that.
Yeah, it's kind of the way I describe it is they're a little bit vaguely named classes that are kind of unnecessary. But the way I describe it to people who don't know the nomenclature is there's a one for every discipline. There's a producing one, an editing one, a cinematography one, a directing one, an acting one, and you have to take all the ones. But then, after that, through that experience, the idea is that you shake out into something that you are more suited for, or that you like more. So that through taking cinematography one, which is required, you will either lighting field, cinematography one, you'll discover, like many people did, hey, I want to shoot movies, I want to be a DP, or you'll discover, like I did, which is I do not want to do that in a million years. And so you kind of, through this trial and error system of putting your hand to everything, not only do you find out kind of what vein that you want to go in terms of a career path, because it's all very segmented, career paths, but also what I've found most valuable is you get a very well-rounded understanding of how movies get made in sort of this 360-degree perspective. That's extremely helpful as an editor to have directed something. It's really helpful as an AD to have shot something. It's really helpful as a producer to have done, all of the things that you need to do, because it just makes you better at whatever it is that you're doing if you have a better understanding of what, sort of where your piece fits into the puzzle.
It's a lot easier, I think. It's a lot harder as a director, I think, to be like, why isn't your shot ready? Why aren't you up? When like you've done that and you're like, oh yeah, actually like setting lights can be really hard.
Yeah.
And getting something to look right can be time consuming.
Yeah. ADs especially.
Is there just like a universally hated version of the film curriculum? Like, I feel like for us, everybody hated doing the environments classes, but is there a part of film that everybody always dreads and is like, can we just skip this?
Directing the narrative is sort of considered the gauntlet, I think, for the major. A lot of people take that class very seriously. I know that a lot of people treat it more seriously than they treat their senior.
I think it depends. I think it depends on what you think you want to do.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Because if you think you want to be a cinematographer, you're gonna sweat you're gonna sweat yourself silly in cinematography one, lighting and field, because you've got something to prove. And I think the same thing is true of like directing the narrative for directors. It's almost like this warm up for your senior thesis at that point. So I don't know that there's any one thing. I mean, like I would detest documentary in general. It's, I just on a philosophical level, that's journalism. It's a different thing. It's great, but it's a different thing. I don't want to do it. And so directing the documentary was just like pulling my fingernails out. So for me, that was the one for me. But I think everybody has a different one. I don't think it's a collective.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that lighting and field is the sort of trial run for your senior. I would say for a cinematographer, it's probably like the GSIN or something like that.
Oh, I just meant directing the narrative. That was
okay.
Just directing the narrative for directors is kind of like a proving ground, because you're
absolutely.
gonna get like your crew and the scale that you're gonna be able to achieve on your senior. A lot of times depends on how well your narrative turns out, because you can talk more and better people into being involved in your senior film, and it kind of expands the scope of things that you can do. Lauren. Mangoes and Odyssey and Schoolcraft is an excellent example of that, I think. With the quality of the films as they went enabled you guys to sort of harness more and more assets, if you will.
Yeah, I think so too. Also, like I don't know, you have to start somewhere.
Yeah, for sure.
And like progressively they got better, but like from my standpoint as a producer, I don't really feel like there is like one class that's like the pinnacle of like your skill set and like defining who you are as a producer. Honestly, like truthfully, I don't feel like there are very strong producing courses at SCAD.
They're not.
I didn't learn really any of my producing from any SCAD courses. It's just like literally being thrown into those projects that you just named off, Mark. Doing it. I think that's like a lot. I don't know if you guys would agree, but I think that's a lot of the learning curve within the film department at SCAD is not necessarily the courses. They provide you with so many tools that are necessary, but actually like getting out there and shooting something and doing it is where you learn the most.
Exactly. I completely concur.
Yeah.
I think especially with producing, like it's kind of a funny thing with producing because you can almost, like I feel like the director of a film or you have a huge part in a film, you're probably producing it without realizing. Like you're just like, oh my gosh, we need to do this, and you like get in your car and you like go and you like meet up with this person, and then you like I have to call these people. You like call these people. You like go and pick up this random thing off Craigslist. Like that's producing. It's like hustling and just like doing everything that needs to be done to get the film done. And it's so easy to just do that when you care about something so much, and then be like, I just produced it. Like I found that like if I was directing something, it was very hard for me not to.
And I often feel like people don't really understand who a producer is or like what a producer really does. It's easy to know, okay, what the director does, what the cinematographer does, the sound designer. Those are like easier to understand. But a producer is basically like, at least from my perspective, what you described, Mel. It's just like the person who makes it happen. So like the director has this vision and they have this idea for what they want to do. You've got a script, and the producer helps bring that to life through helping find locations, crewing up.
It's logistics. It's a lot of logistics.
Yeah, it's logistics. And I think the quality of the film obviously is affected by how good of a producer you have.
And it just wouldn't happen without the producer. Like they literally do everything. And it's so interesting, like you said, that so many people are like, what does a producer do? It's like everything that you don't realize is needed, like that needs to happen. Yeah.
For me, the biggest downfall in the SCAD producerial thing is that in the real world, the producers are the ones who hold the purse strings. And that gives them the power to be able to be in this natural competition with the craftsmen. There's a natural tension between budget and scope, and the idea is that these two entities war, in a professional way, and it ends up somewhere in the sweet spot in the middle. But at SCAD, the people that are funding the films often are the directors, or they're at least the ones making that happen on the funding side. So when Mel's talking about producing without knowing it, the director almost always is the executive producer at SCAD, and the producers end up being more line producers or sort of down the line a little bit, just because they can't say, no, we're not paying for it. You got to do something else, because they don't have that control. And I think that's the biggest thing that separates when people come out of SCAD and like, oh, I thought this is what a producer was, or I thought that's what a producer did, or in SCAD it's kind of a strange thing that only exists there. And so I think it's mostly, a lot of it is because of the purse strings thing. What do you think about that?
I think that's totally true. Yeah, because in the real world, the producer is the one in charge of them. Yeah.
You can't have the techno crane today.
But
yesterday.
I do feel like you have to find, like, as a producer and then the director, you have to find the the happy ground between the two of you. It's not like always a war. I don't ever see it like that. It's like a collaboration. You're both. I still see myself as an artist, so you're both artists in your own respects, and so of course there's going to be some like creative differences as well, and of course like monetary difference in outlooks. But I think like for any project, it's a collaboration. You want to work with people that you like working with, and you guys get along.
For sure.
I think that's also like part of the success with SCAD is, at least within the film department, and I guess any department, but you really find the people that you want to collaborate with, and you end up sticking with those people, I think. And then that carries through after you graduate too. You tend to work with the same people you did at SCAD, and you make great stuff. Like case in point, the company that I work for, one of the founders of the company is from SCAD, and I'm from SCAD. We hire tons of other people from SCAD that he went to school with. I think it just like goes to show that the connections you make at school can really last a lifetime.
Yeah, all the folks that I work with here in Atlanta, I went to SCAD with. I run into people in every department. I've worked on shows where I went to school with an office PA. I've worked on shows where I've went to school with a grip and an electrician or a camera assistant. I've worked, on shows where I worked on a show where a friend was a cast assistant to one of the main principal actors that I went to school with, had classes with and stuff. So what the really cool thing about that is when, like I did 3 weeks ago, come out and direct a short film. All of my friends now that I went to school with are qualified technicians in town, and they want to do stuff, and so they come out. And then I had Dan Irons and Aaron Mainwaring and Ellie Evans and Eric Dickinson and Clay Gibson, all these, Josh Heat Dirks, all these guys that and girls that I went to SCAD with came out and like worked on my short film. It's just kind of like this weird nostalgia thing. So there's all kinds of good stuff like that.
We all meet again together in the end.
SCAD Club Unite. We talk about like starting a speakeasy, where it's just like SCAD film crew in Atlanta.
That would be great.
Go to the speakeasy and drink beer and talk about Hofstein.
Switching gears a little bit, I wanted to ask about the materials that you have to have for your film classes. I know some of them you can rent from SCAD, I think that's right, and then some of them you actually have to buy. So among the ones that you have to own yourself, what is the most expensive?
Laptop.
Yeah.
You pretty much have to have a laptop that's editing capable. I mean, you don't have to, but you kind of do.
Unless you like living in a 40-degree air-conditioned room all finals week. SCAD is really great at providing film equipment. I know we complain. It's called the Cage. The Cage is the place where you get all of the film equipment. And there's a lot of complaints. Obviously, it's like there are a ton of sort of like guidelines and rules to follow in checking out equipment. So what's great is that SCAD provides all of that. So like the majority of what we have to purchase ourselves really isn't that big of a deal. Like laptops, almost everybody for school anyway, no matter what they're studying, needs to get a laptop.
Yes.
And then, like hard drives, you need a couple of good hard drives, like some card readers, I would say like headphones, a good pair of headphones. I don't know.
Mhm.
Can you guys think of anything else?
If you're on the cinematography side,
Gels and tapes and
gels
stuff.
and consumables can add up pretty fast. Rolls of gaff tape aren't cheap, and you pretty much live on them.
Mhm.
But I mean, like, I still have a ton. Like, I mean, you know, it's super easy to just, like, once you have that sort of initial investment of like gels and clothespins and all that stuff, it's really easy to sort of just like catch up, keep it up with what you need without a ton of cash.
Yeah, the cinematography side, there's a lot of that, and then on the directing side, you do fund your films. You don't have to do for the equipment and stuff, which is amazing because like on any given day you can have $500,000 to $1 million worth of equipment just kind of in your house with no charge, just part of the tuition to the school. But if you need wardrobe, if you need props, you got to feed people while they're working for you, and so there's expenses like that. Like I know a bunch of people would like rent trucks, like U-Haul trucks and stuff, and there's expense involved in that.
Locations or
sometimes there's location costs. Sometimes you have to provide extra insurance if you're doing like a stunt or anything with weapons. You have to hire cops and shut down roads and stuff. So there's it depends on what. I mean, you can get away with it pretty cheap for that kind of thing, but sometimes there's sort of those extra expenses that are not quite materials, but you still sometimes can spend a lot of money on that. And I know people spend a lot of money on it.
Melanie, did you take the intro class in Hong Kong or in Savannah?
In Savannah. So when I was at the Hong Kong campus, they didn't have the film major. So I kind of like decided I was going to do film, and then I just went to Savannah. So my first quarter there was spring quarter 2013, I think. And I took intro to film that quarter.
What is the intro class like? What kind of things do you get to do, and what things do you get to cover?
That varies a lot by professor, right?
Yeah, it's just I was like, that completely depends on who you have it with. Like, I had it with Cheney, so it was. I love Cheney. He's just like great. He's very relaxed, but he's honest still. And I don't know. I loved my intro to film class, and I have people that like cried in their intro to film classes. So I don't know. Generally, you have two big films that you have to make. One of them is like the mood one. You guys remember? You have to make a film. I think it has to be just like one scene that like capture, or I don't know. It has to be a short film that captures a mood, like some sort of ambiance or mood. So you can go to a location and shoot there, and there's all sorts of things you can do. And then the next big thing is like your final project in Film 100, which is basically, in my class, you could make whatever kind of film you wanted to.
That's very Cheney. Just do whatever you want.
Yeah.
I took it with Kolkowski, who's sort of interesting. She's very plugged into sort of the local grip and electric community in Savannah. And so, like, our mood project, I think that my class was like one of the last ones to shoot on the Bolex, the 16 millimeter, like.
Yeah, I didn't get to do that.
Cameras.
Oh, you didn't?
I got to shoot film on the
You
Bolex.
guys, Mel, you missed out.
No,
It's a real trip. You can still shoot on film if you take the actual cinematography. The class called cinematography is all about actually traditionally shooting on film, mostly 16 and 32, but like we shot on, 35. But we shot on like, this super tiny Bolex, and it was a total trip. And then like for the final, we did, it was a film noir because it's the easiest thing to light because she's really dramatic lighting and you don't worry about softening it or if something's too hard or something like. It's an easy kind of thing to make mistakes in. So we shot a film noir and it was terrible. Generally, your intro projects are. You look back at them your senior year and you're like, oh gosh. Which is good, I guess, right?
No, it's good. It shows progression. Mine was the same. Mel, I also took Cheney, but we did shoot on the Bolex for the mood video. which is just like cool. It's like a tiny little like crank and it's so great. But then yeah, you could just do whatever you want, and of course it's terrible. Was yours bad, Mel? Did you
my mood one was like a nightmare. Like it was just really bad. And then weirdly enough, my Film 100 one, like the one that I did whatever I wanted. I think it was just because I had a really cool idea for it. I like interviewed this old couple that went to my church in Savannah who had been married for like 60 years or something, and they basically shared their story, and then I had a younger couple like act it out. And it's on my website. It's called Ed and Adrian. And there's a lot of things about it that I amateurly did, like instead of like, and I'm just making myself vulnerable here so you can see that you'll probably watch it and be like, oh, that's sweet, but now that I'm telling you these mistakes, you're like, oh. But
oh, I know them. Sorry, I have your website over there. Aw, sweet.
But like cutting, instead of like one cut to the next, I have like a black space in between. It's like I'd never used to have that. I was like, oh, okay. But I still like it, you know, and I still show it to people because I think it shows that like even though you might not know technically the best way to do something, you might not be like a cinematographer or a editor or whatever right off the bat, but like story is always king, and like when you have a good story, it's still going to be like interesting and fun to watch. But then, so that one was okay, but like my narrative, like all the other classes after that were like terrible until like my senior year. And I think everyone, like this goes to anyone who wants to make films, like the first two films you make are going to suck unless you're like crazy amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
We want to have, I've been talking to Dan and Aaron and all these cats in Atlanta. We want to have a watch your first real film party where everybody brings everybody. It's like White Elephant, man. We're gonna everybody's gonna bring their first thing, and we'll screen it, and we'll all just have this great barrel of laughs over it. I think it's a lot of fun.
That's like insequential. I really think that there's just a closet filled with everybody's freshman mini comics that they just like open up and then laugh at.
Yeah.
I have expected that. Like at graduation, they hand you your diploma and your mini comic, and they're like, "This really sucked." Like.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like that. I think it's fun. I found a copy of Engelbach's first feature online. America 3000, and we had a party and watched it.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
It was bad.
So after you guys get out of intro, what are the rest of your projects and homework like in the other classes?
Oh,
it's very different for each class.
Yeah.
I think.
It depends on what your track is, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So like for instance, if you take something that's like more technical, like I took 2 credits of the Steadicam lab, and what you would do is you would go for class time and you would just operate Steadicam, and then just by the end of the quarter, all you had to do was do 2 shots in student films, operate 2 shots in tournament, and that was pretty much it. But if you did something like, say, I took advanced post, and that was a bunch of small. Lauren, you were in that class with me, weren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. It was a bunch of small tasks in that class. That was like just editing workflow mostly. It was mostly about like media management, workflow, and like pushing Avid a little harder. So that was a lot smaller task. We didn't have to actually cut anything.
No, I don't think that we ever cut anything in that class. I guess like in the film department, the classes are so different from each other, I feel like. In the beginning, because like we talked about earlier, you've got your editing class, your lighting class, screenwriting, you can take a directing class. Like all of those are so different. And it also like changes on what professor you take as well. But like you're each learning very different things that all come together into like a basic knowledge of what film is.
Exactly. Yeah, I was gonna say I think most of your sophomore and junior year are still sampling like everything in film because you have certain requirements like sound design. Everyone has to take sound design, and that's like you're working with Pro Tools and like
That was such a
creating the
fun
sound.
class. I
It's
loved
super
that
fun.
class.
It's like creating sound for like an animation or a little clip or something.
I did the Incredibles robot battle.
That's
It's online somewhere. I did all the voices and everything. It's online
That's
somewhere.
awesome.
I'm not sure where it is.
Yeah, sound design's super fun. So it's a lot of like learning everything, which I think is super valuable. And then like end of your junior year and your senior year is when you're like out of all this. This is what I like. This is what I feel good at, and I'm gonna like focus on that. And still, you can get by without really focusing too much on one thing.
I don't know if you. Oh, go ahead, Mark.
No, go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, I don't know if you guys felt the same way, but for me, very much like in the first couple of years in the film department, I sort of like had an identity crisis. I was like, because you like there are some classes that they're just not your fit, and you're like, oh my gosh, am I meant to be a filmmaker?
Mm-hmm.
Like, if I hate these film courses, you know, am I supposed to be doing film? And it's hard because, yeah, Mel, like you said, it's like a sampling of everything, and not everything is a perfect fit for you.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, you really, for me, I felt like I had to like really battle it out to figure out what it was that I was interested in, and that's when I really started to enjoy the film. I don't know, did you guys feel the same way at times, or?
Oh, absolutely.
Definitely.
Not so much for me. Just in the sense of I kind of knew what I wanted to do when I came to SCAD, because I just kind of like I had a background in entertainment, not in film, but in entertainment, and so I was kind of able to reverse engineer myself and say, okay, I think based on traits and qualities XYZ against job requirements, you know, ABC, I think this is what I'd be good at. And so it was less about like figuring out what I wanted to do and figuring out how everything was applicable and valuable to that. And so it was less of a searching for me.
You're so much more self-aware, Mark, than I was when I came into SCAD. That's awesome.
Well, it's because going to SCAD was this really deliberate decision for me. I had applied to 12 colleges, 11 public policy, law, and political science colleges, and SCAD on a whim. And so it was a very much of turning. When I went to SCAD, it was turning away from about an 8-year journey that I had made towards sort of that law, politics, international affairs thing. And it was such a deliberate like decision that had to be so challenged and thought out on the front end that I guess I did a lot of that before I got there, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, totally.
So, but I could totally see like if you're like, hey, I want to make movies and I don't really know, and you do some of that during it. It's probably a lot easier to do when you're not just playing mind games in your brain. It's like,
for me, it wasn't even that like I knew that I wanted to come in. I knew I wanted to work with cameras. I knew I wanted to like work on the technical side of filmmaking. But I got there and I was like, holy crap, there's so much paperwork and there's so much bookkeeping and like all the production side of things is really what you're going to get into, because like you have to do pre-production before you can take sort of cinematography 1, and I'm like, oh man, I am not good at any of this.
Do you guys remember the first time you just really hit the vein that you're supposed to be in, and that, oh thank God moment?
Absolutely. I remember mine really specifically, yeah.
Because like, you know, even though I kind of knew and kind of had this whole thing sort of mapped out, it was when I first directed my first real little short film, which was Dan Iron's digital cinematography project called To Catch a Break. And it was just, have you seen it? Yeah. I'd been in you were in his class at the time, that's right. And I'd been in SCAD for I guess a year and a half at that point, and it hadn't ever, even though I kind of was like, I think, yeah, it had never been like, bam, validated. And doing that project was my, oh thank God, moment where I was like, okay, I'm good at it. Okay, we can stop stressing out about it. Good.
I don't know. I lived in like trepidation until like my senior year. So
Such a good
I
word.
did too.
Trepidation.
I feel like I'm still like, do I want to do this? Like, what am I doing? Yeah, I would say like to any, like if there's prospective students watching this who are like, oh, I might want to major in film SCAD or whatever.
yeah.
Like my piece of advice would be like, think about what it is. Like when you imagine filmmaking, you're like, I want to be a filmmaker. What are you doing when you imagine it? Because filmmaking is like it's hard to even wrap my head around the fact that there's a major, like you can major in film, because film is like
so
there-
wide.
so many things. Yeah, like you could be a filmmaker and be like painting a bathroom. You know, like that's something I did is like for one of my films. You know, like there's so many different things, and like, and you don't have to lock down exactly what it is, but be aware that like, because like you said, Lauren, I was just not self-aware. I'm like, what was I thinking? Like I was just like, film. I'm like, what is film? Like it's like so many things. And so when you like start to get into it, and you're in this class where you're like on your feet with like C-stands, like gripping, you're like, what the heck? Like I don't enjoy this, or like there's just so many aspects of it that you could be in, and it really helps to like just realize that beforehand, that like you're not just going to be living this like dream, you're going to be practically doing something with your hands, and like there's so many things it could be.
I remember, I don't remember which professor told it to me, but I really distinctly remember the piece of advice where they're like, go watch a big movie like Avengers or something, and at the end, stay for the credits and look at everybody's name and look at how many people it took to make this movie happen, and realize that every one of them, that 90% of them don't have the job that you think filmmaking is. You know, some guy just hammers me out. Some guy just lifts heavy boxes from point A to point B all day. You know?
This person like drove everyone everywhere. Like this person made food. Yeah, it's really true.
That one person decided where the bathroom was going to be. It was a very important person. Be friends with those people.
Yeah.
You know, this one painted the left bicep of the Hulk for 5 weeks.
See, and that's great advice, not even just for like people deciding to go into film, because so much of what you're saying is reminding me of when I learned more of what animation was going to be like, because originally that's what I wanted to do, but when I thought, yeah, I could be the person like doing the modeling for Hulk's bicep for the rest of my life, I'm like, I wanted to draw and also not work with others, so.
Yeah, I think like Lisa, you bring up a really good point. Like film is probably like the most collaborative art form that exists.
Yeah.
And so with that, there are so many other things you can major in and still work in film.
Yeah.
Like storyboard artist, if you like to draw, you could be a storyboard artist, or like production design, or like sculpture, and you do modeling, like 3D modelings for films. There are like so many things. So you don't, if you're interested in a film and all of this isn't sounding cool to you, then you should like major in what you're interested in, and if you want to work in film, you'll probably just fall into that.
Yeah.
You know?
And I remember hearing from you, Lauren, like how many setbacks you all had when you were working on a film together, and I just thought that would drive me crazy, because I want to work on my own schedule and do things when I need them to get done, and I just kept thinking about, you said that there were days that people either didn't show up or some part of it couldn't come together, you couldn't be at the location because there was a miscommunication or something. Lauren, why don't you talk about what it's like to kind of get all of that done, I guess.
Organize all of that. I mean, yeah, that's like what a producer does. Is organizing all of that, and of course, you're constantly working with other people, and you have to sometimes convince people to let you do things that maybe they don't want to do.
It's a huge part of filmmaking.
It's a huge part of filmmaking. So I have had some like really like stressful experiences with that. Like, I don't recommend this, but my senior film I directed, and produced, and I wanted to shoot it on a train, like a modern.
Oh, I remember this. I remember hearing you talk about this.
Yeah,
It's a really good film.
Thank you. I wanted, so I wanted to shoot on this train, and like being the producer, I was like, great, I'm going to contact MARTA, which is Atlanta's transit system, and we're going to shoot on this train. And of course, it's very expensive. And also, once you get, like, with locations, especially like when you're dealing with a large corporation, there's like insurance you have to worry about. Like, these are things you don't think about when making a film. Most of you guys will probably never have to deal with this. But like from a producer's standpoint, insurance is huge. So anyway, long story short, I couldn't shoot on the train. So I was able to shoot on a bus, but the process of switching from train to bus, working out all of the legalities with that, took, I think it was like 3 months. And so there's always going to be something that you're going to have to battle out, maybe not on that scale. I'm sure like all of you guys have also had something that you had to sort of like reimagine because what you had originally planned for wasn't able to come to fruition because of technicalities. And I think that's like part of what's great about filmmaking as an art is that you're constantly having to change how you think about it and how the story folds out creatively to like to match these technical issues that you have or logistics issues. It's always something with films, guys.
Yeah, it's a problem solving.
Yeah, you have to be a problem solver if you're a filmmaker.
And you got to have a really high tolerance for stress and changes.
Chaos.
You got to have a really high tolerance for it. You know, because you show up sometimes and it's, well, our whole plan doesn't work.
Yeah.
We need a new plan. Here we go.
Yeah.
And it's just,
Yeah.
it's just really, it's like, right, I mean, you can plan to the nth degree, and sometimes it'll work out, and sometimes it doesn't. But there's always going to be that creative moment of everything that we prepared for is not going to work. Okay, new plan.
Yeah, I was gonna say like one of the biggest things I learned from majoring in film, or like that I feel like just benefited me as a person, is like in film everything goes wrong. Like it just like something goes wrong, and you're just forced to like work with it, like Mark was saying. And like after majoring in film, I'm much less phased by like chaos now.
You got to
like,
be very.
If something goes wrong, you're just like, all right, like, let's move with it. But the fun thing about film, and an important thing I figured out for me, because like Lisa, you seem very stressed by this concept of
you
like,
have no idea.
all depends on other people.
When things don't go according to plan, I lose my mind.
And like all these other people could bail, like just all that. That was very stressful for me, and was one of the things that caused me to be like, why am I majoring in this? Like my roommates were like, one of my roommates would be like sewing in the corner, the other was like painting, and I was like making phone calls like, what? Like I can't even do my work without these people cooperating. Like it's a completely different ball game than like other majors. But when you find a team that you like trust and is reliable, and you're like on set together, and you have somebody with you that's like, everything's falling apart, like shoot, you know, but like you're like together in it, like there's something really thrilling about that, and like really rewarding to know that you like worked through all these obstacles with people you trusted. So
it's not for the faint of heart.
There was I remember specifically, I think my most sort of vivid memory of this kind of problem was we were at a shoot, and we show up for the day, and we have this big, really professional, they have the Fisher dolly, which is this big super, when you think of like a film dolly, it's what you think of. And so we get there and we start putting the camera on, and my dolly grip comes up to me and he's like, hey, the screw is stripped, we can't mount the camera. And our entire day is dolly shoot. And so me and the director in like 30 minutes have to rewrite the entire shot list for the day to move stuff around until we can get this dolly fixed. And it's like, if that's like a thing that just like you can't handle, like film is going to be difficult. It's not impossible, but it's definitely difficult.
Yeah, we had a similar thing even in a professional world yesterday. well, I guess it was day before yesterday. The A camera operator on this Netflix show, his name is Bob Gorlick, and he's a stud. And he did the long hallway oneer in Pulp Fiction. He was one of the main Steadicam operators on Dark Knight. I mean, he's just unbelievable A-list camera operator guy. The last shot Thursday night, his hand got pinched and he crushed his finger, one maybe two bones in his finger, and then he's gone. And there's blood everywhere. He's gone. And now there's no more Steadicam. So you got to figure out how to finish the rest of this, the night without a Steadicam operator. You can't get anybody in there, 1 o'clock in the morning to do the Steadicam shots that we had scheduled. So they had to figure out a whole other way of shooting the scene just because somebody's fingers got crushed. And that happens in the real world.
Oh,
See,
yeah.
so you guys actually have an excuse for when you're like, oh, my homework didn't get done because legitimate excuse, sequential. I just get so mad. I'm like, it was on you. Do your work.
I still think that applies, though. I still think, in filmmaking, it probably takes us maybe a little bit longer to make our projects, but you're still responsible. Like, there are deadlines in the real world, too, with clients or with just saving money. Like Mark, if you guys yesterday had to stop shooting for the rest of the day or the rest of the night because this guy couldn't work, how much money do you think you would have lost? Thousands of dollars.
Somewhere around $80,000 because I figured it out yesterday.
Exactly. So in the film world, in the professional world of film, there are these sort of restrictions too, where you have to get creative and manage your time properly. So I think, Lisa, it's important for deadlines for everybody. No excuses.
No
it's
excuses.
about assuming the worst. Yeah, you have to assume the worst and prepare for the worst because it often does happen in film. So if you weren't prepared, then that's kind of on you.
If it just starts raining, you have a choice. Either it's raining in the movie now, or you have to do something else.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about something happier now.
Yeah.
What kind of film showcases do they have during the year? Because most people know about the Savannah Film Festival that happens in the fall each year, but what other events and stuff do they have?
There's a cinema circle, which is awesome.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's just they do series through the quarters, and Friday nights they'll show films at the Trustees, just kind of a one-off, and it's free for students. It's like $5 for the public, and they'll do a discussion before and after. But the notable thing about this is they did the Summer of Spielberg, and that was the theme of this one particular quarter. And I had never seen Jaws, and I had never seen Saving Private Ryan, and they played back-to-back 2 weekends on film. Film print projections, and I watched Saving Private Ryan for the first time on a big screen on a film print projection. It was awesome.
I'm so glad to see Jaws.
It was awesome.
Nothing beats seeing a film in its original format on a large screen.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right, Mark. I totally forgot about the SCAD Cinema Circle. That's amazing.
Awesome.
It's so cool.
I saw Heat with Robert De Niro and
Al Pacino.
Al Pacino in that cinema circle. I saw In the Heat of the Night with Sidney Poitier, and that was cool because it was aged. We saw the first ever commercially successful independent film, which was what's his name? It was called In a Lonely Place.
Oh yeah.
Oh, what's that guy's name? The big actor, 40s actor.
I don't know.
Sorry.
It was the first ever successful
That's cool.
film, and it was watched it. And it's always in the context of discussion and analysis and why was the film successful. What moments of the film work. And for me, and this is just overarching, SCAD classes were great, but the places I learned were watching movies with other SCAD students as sort of this Greco education style thing, where it's just a bunch of people sitting around talking about movies all the time, and working on set. And that the classes just were kind of a supplementary structuring for those things, which is where my education happened, was on sets and conversations with people and watching movies.
Yeah. And then Lisa, also they at the end of each quarter, SCAD has like a student showcase for the seniors, the senior projects that finish that quarter.
They screen them on the big screen.
They screen them on the big screen, so that's cool to see and to go to like see what like your peers are creating. I mean, that's cool.
Or what you created, you know.
Or what you created.
To see your own work on the screen is an exhilaration. Cool. It's nerve-wracking. Sit next to people, because you're like not watching your movie, you're watching all the people and see if they laugh when you want them to laugh. You know, it's like see if the jokes land and stuff. It's just terrifying.
Yeah.
I would just die the whole time. I'd be like, no, don't look at my stuff. If I had enough dirt, but to have like a theater full of people, I'd just be like, you don't know I'm here, so you can say whatever you want. Did you guys ever go to the career fair? And if you did, was it helpful?
I never went.
I never did.
I went once, and it was not built for our majors, the way I'm going to phrase it.
So I had this like big plan to go one year, and like, but it was such a rush. I was like trying to like print resumes and like business cards. I ended up having this like breakdown before it. I was like, I'm not going. So I didn't go. So no, the answer is no.
Nobody went. That's so funny. Well, not one of us.
Okay, the worst.
Yeah, Ben went 1 year, right?
I went, and I was talking with I think it was Gulfstream, because if you move to Savannah, you'll hear about Gulfstream, massive plane manufacturer set up here in Savannah. They like financed one of the SCAD buildings and everything. But I was talking to them, and they're like, yeah, no, we're looking for an in-house cinematographer. We love it. And I was like, cool. Is there any like? And they're like, oh, the person who handles all that's not here today. And I was like,
well, you're not looking very hard.
Wow.
Like, it's really helpful for like animation students. I have a friend who got a job at Floyd County from the career fair, like, so it's super useful, just not so much for us.
Yeah, most of what we do in the real world is freelance. There's very few of us that work at companies. It's not usually the way it works at least in like cinema and television. I mean, there's lots of video and media production stuff that's different. And if you're on the production side, like Lauren, obviously it's different. But for the most part, not necessarily, but it's you're more likely on the production side to work for a company than you are to say a cinematographer.
Sure.
So the career fair is more about like companies finding employees. So if you like as an animator, you're going to work for most of the time. You're going to work for a company, or as a designer, you might work for a company. But since it's not really the way that our industry is set up, it doesn't really work very well for us. For us, it would be much more beneficial, I think, to have a separate sort of symposium with all the guilds, like if the DGA, the PGA, Local 600, Local 491 and 479 sent representatives for like the different union guilds. I feel like that would be a lot more helpful, because that's really a lot of our industry really works is through those sort of vehicles.
Definitely. This question's always meant to be like my nudge to the career advisors that I know who watch this. It's like, okay.
Well, I was going to say something else about film. Oh, sorry, Ben. You go ahead.
I was gonna say I think Kulkowski's actually been trying to set something like that up, Mark.
She has, and she did that little question and answer session with 600, and because I know Darla, the business administrator for 600, went down there, and Kulkowski's a member of 600, the Camera Guild, and of the Grip and Lighting Guild in Savannah, which is the 491. So she does a good job with that kind of thing, but it's not really macro like the career fair
absolutely.
is. It's sort of kind of like that, or if I recall, it was kind of off the cuff, and it was sort of, and the reason why it happened was as a ripple effect off of the death of Sarah Jones, which happened in our backyards at SCAD, and I remember when that happened, it deeply affected the SCAD film community, because that's us, that's an sort of an entry level job, young person out there living the dream, and so it was kind of very close to home, and so some of the locals took notice of the film program in Savannah because of that event, I think.
Yeah.
Melanie, what were you going to say?
Yeah, what were you going to say?
Oh, I was going to say something to be aware of as well when you get into film is that is like I don't know how to word this except for an example, like you'll have graphic design friends or even like motion media friends, whatever, photography, who like shoot something or design something, work, tweak it for a few days, and then they have it, and they can show it to you. They can show it to companies. They can put it on their website. Like that's their work. And when you work in film, like you'll be working on something for like a year, and then once it's finished, you can't even show anyone for another year if you're like submitting it to festivals and like. So like I think the thing for me, and I had a huge like crisis point like every career fair, was like I don't have anything to show anyone because I'm working on it right now, and like it's not done. And I feel, and this could be like a blanket statement, but I feel like most people who graduate from SCAD and film graduate like a mess, and they're like, I don't have a website, I don't have, I need to like get myself together and like figure out what I'm doing, because you have all these, you've been like hustling so hard. Like when you're working on a film, you like can't think about anything else, and you're just like doing everything to get it done. And like it's much less, like most people who are like a graphic design major or whatever are very focused on their career and on like they've had a website for like years, they like are all about the LinkedIn. Like it's just like something that I feel like when you're in film is very hard to focus on that and making films at the same time. So a lot of my friends in film graduated, took a break, and were like, okay, now I'm gonna like get my materials together and like figure out what kind of job I want to apply for and that kind of thing. And that's what I had to do.
It also depends on like what you're trying to do, because a lot of our industry doesn't work that way. I don't have a website. I don't have a demo reel.
It's completely like connections and like getting on set. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have anything to show anybody, and nobody asks, and no one cares. And
exactly.
So it's just. It's a very different, depending on what you want to do, and it's always different. But just in the jobs that I've had, at working as a camera assistant and as a set lighting technician, I haven't had to do any of that. But if I was trying to be an independent cinematographer, if I was trying to shoot music videos or do whatever, that kind of thing, is different. So it's just it's not like graphic design where there's a way to do that, and there's just no way to do what it is that we do, which is interesting.
It's really true, Mark. Like you can look up really successful people in the industry that have like nothing, like no website, no, like they just get on set, like, and so the industry, especially like film set industry, is a completely different animal. Like it's about who you know and how you are working.
It's true. I got my job here not because I submitted anything. I literally submitted nothing. They're like, we don't want to see your resume. We don't want to see your reel. I just got the job from word of mouth, and I think that's how like most of the industry is. So you just like, the best advice I think we can give is just like get on set and start meeting people, and you'll learn so much once you get on set. And that's where like you can start to get jobs. And there are people here in LA that make a living being PAs. It's insane, and they have no like film schooling like we do, but they know they know how to be a great PA. They know how to work a set, and then from there they can build, and they can go into like from there they learn, and they can move on to other things as well. But I do have to say though, I think it can be beneficial to have a website depending on what you want like focus in. Like if you're a cinematographer, I think it is good to have a reel. If you're a director, I think it's good to have a reel once you've like built up something. Just because like here at work, we're constantly referring directors and cinematographers for jobs. So it's important to be able to like look at their website and see what they have, and be able to take what they have from their website and show it to our clients. So I think it is something beneficial to have. Maybe you don't need to have it right away, but once you can build up a bit of a repertoire, I think it's a useful tool for some people.
If you're trying to be a creative head, then it's something that you need. For sure. If you're trying to get jobs directing or shooting music videos, commercials, films, if those are the jobs you were trying to get right off the bat, you gotta have that stuff. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think it's really funny. They try like that. They try to kind of squeeze all of that in right around the end of senior 3, our third sort of senior sequence class in our last quarter at SCAD. We're wrapping everything up, and that's when you're doing post production on your senior film if you're a director. And it's like, so did you get your business cards printed? Yours are printed? Like, you're like, my sound guy isn't calling me back. Like, my film is due in 4 days, and I don't have any idea what's going on.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes those things aren't so useful, like, right after you graduate. Sometimes they are. I think it depends on the person, but, like, from my experience, it's mostly just, like, word of mouth, and, like, knowing that you're a good worker. Then they'll pick you,
Going off of that, I think I'll wrap it up with the final question, which would be, what is your highest praise of the film department, and then what is your biggest criticism? So, let loose, and then my channel disappears. Banned from YouTube. Yeah, let's hear what you guys have to say about what's going well and what you think could be improved. I think you guys have said a lot already, but I'm always interested to hear about this.
Oh man, I think it's really great that SCAD provides equipment, and like, I know, like, this year they've acquired some better cameras or different cameras, and stuff like that. So I think the fact that we can get equipment for free and be able to use that is awesome. Just because after school, after SCAD, it's like never going to be free ever again. So I think that's, I don't know, I think that's a great thing that SCAD offers.
Oh, Mark, I'll ask you. I was asking what is your biggest criticism and biggest praise for the film department? What do you think?
Mark, I said that having equipment available to us for free is huge.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say that the biggest benefit is the access to resource. In addition to equipment, I'd add people, and especially for the people who do need to create a reel. You've got the tools to come out of school with a reel. The equipment and the people. If you're a cinematographer, there's directors who are making films that you can shoot, and if you're a director, there's cinematographers out there shooting films that you can direct. And so that and the environment, sort of like this Greco symposium idea that I was talking about before, where it's just like it's this little bubble of people who love and talk about movies all the time, and the amount of education that comes out of those conversations. My biggest criticism of SCAD, based on my personal experience, is that the career preparation is abysmal. And there's no. I know so many people, and I've just been fortunate. I know so many people who have no idea what to do when they get out of college. And for a university that touts itself as being the University of Creative Careers, there's not enough preparation for what the jobs that you're actually going to be able to get when you get out of school. Most people are smart enough to know that you're not going to direct Avengers 9 when you get out of film school, but to know really what the options are for an entry-level position in film, and how to get those jobs really is something that's lacking, which is kind of what I sort of in the vein I was going with that the Craftsman Symposium idea instead of the career fair, is that if you're a cinematographer, you're going to be able to get maybe some music video shooting gigs and things like that here and there, and it'll ramp up and you'll be able to shoot more things. But if you need a job, if you need to make money, you're going to be an electrician or you're going to be a camera assistant. And to know how to get those jobs, and that's what life's going to be, it would be helpful. I think there's a very independent mindset at the school, because that's creative people, creative head type people tend to get more in that because you have a little bit more creative control. But if you're like me, I need a job, and so I come out of school. I want to direct my things and work on my scripts and stuff, but I also need to pay my rent. So it would have been cool for me to be able to know, hey, I can go be an electrician and I can make X amount of dollars an hour, and these are the things I need to do that. I mean, or here's a list of all the entry-level jobs and the rates and how you get them. That would have been helpful for me, to know you're not going to be a starving artist to be a filmmaker. There's just a cost for everything. You can make great money as a camera assistant on real movies by doing X, Y, Z, and then just shoot your things on the weekend or in your breaks and be able to ramp that up without having to make a financial sacrifice. So that's my biggest criticism.
Melanie, what about you?
I would say, I would say my highest praise would be very similar to like what you both have said so far. I think it would be being in a creative environment, like especially in the film major when you're making a film, you need like sound designers, set designers, you might need an illustrator, you need a painter to help, there's just so many things that you need, and it's amazing to be in that environment when you're making a film and like all your friends are like doing their own thing in their own major, but you're like, hey, you like Lauren said, a lot of it's convincing people that time.
Sales.
So much of film is like that scary feeling where you're like, I'm burdening this person, I'm like barging into their house, I'm using their living room for like 3 days. But once you get over that, it's really cool and can be really rewarding for those people too. Just to have all that like at your fingertips. Like now that I'm like out of school, I'm like, oh, I'm not surrounded by all these people that can make a film with me and the equipment to do it. Like that sucks. So I think it would be that, and that it's like Mark said, it's a very independent school. Like it's what you make of it entirely. So you can choose to like really be a go-getter and like find your people, or you could not, and it makes a huge difference like what you put into it.
Yeah, the people, like, the circle you're in makes a huge difference.
Makes a huge difference. And then even like career resources, like there are career advisors. And like I didn't go and see mine till like my senior year. I think I went like twice, and I was like, wow, like I could have done this a lot sooner. It would have really helped me. Should have done it. So that's like, go see your career advisor, be friends with them. And then I think my highest criticism would be I think a lack of focus on story, like in the film department. Because I think like you have to take a screenwriting class or something, you have to take at least one or something like that. But I don't feel like I learned very much about story from those classes. Like, I learned most about story from, like, I took a lot of performing arts electives, like, as my, like, for fun. Like, I love performing arts.
Yeah. So great. Recommend to anybody. It's amazing.
Take performing arts electives, because you'll also, like, take improv, because you'll learn, like, oh my gosh, like, this is what story is made of. Like, and I think that there's so many super talented people at SCAD in cinematography, like lighting, all these things, and that's what is held like very high and like a high standard. But what happens a lot is you'll see like a film that's beautiful but just flat, and you're like, I wonder why that wasn't like really compelling as a story or whatever. And I think it would benefit us to like just have more exposure to that and focus more on that, and not get too caught up. And the thing is, there are a lot of cinematographers, so like it doesn't matter as much. Like for their reel, they just want great footage, But I think it's so much more fun for everybody when you have a riveting like story, and I think that could be focused on more. Yeah,
that's a good one.
Yeah, it's definitely, the program is a technically bent program towards craft. For sure, and I think even in my tenure there, it was starting to change a little bit away from that, but certainly the sort of the echelon above me mostly seemed to be, it's just like a technically bent something or other. But I agree. I think that's an excellent point.
What about you, Ben?
Mine is actually my praise and my criticism are actually kind of hybrids of things that have already been mentioned. Because I've been thinking about it, and it's like so much of the gear is available, and so much of so many of the tools to like physically make a movie are there, and it sort of helps with the sort of barrier to entry that I think a lot of people feel like exists in film, because you have to have, it's one of the most technical art forms. I mean, like, you can do, this isn't meant to be an insult, but like you can do comics, and you can do, with charcoal and a any amount of mark making tool and surface put it on. But like, you know, film is is very sort of technology oriented, and it has been sort of forever. And having that technology is really great, but I definitely think that SCAD primarily sets itself up as a technical school, where most of the senior projects are gorgeous but don't make any sense. You know, it's definitely a school that I think lets cinematographers kind of, I don't want to use the phrase run rampant because it's not really fair, but
I'll buy it.
Yeah, we definitely get the lion's share of the things that go on at SCAD. I mean, there's five cinematography electives and 2 directing electives.
Yeah, 2 editing electives,
Yeah.
1 production elective.
Yeah. But I have to say though, do you feel like the technical skills that you guys learned are beneficial for you now?
I mean,
Yes.
absolutely. I think that going into a professional world, and because you can go to, I have a friend who went to Emerson, and he's like, you know, he shot on like a Canon XL1 from 1998 or whatever on mini DV tape, and he's a great filmmaker, but like he's been trying to get jobs on you know, film sets, and he doesn't know anything that he's working with, and it's been really tough for him.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, I went to school to direct. I aspire to direct. I work every day towards becoming a director, and I go to work as a set lighting technician because I learned how to be a set lighting technician at school, and I have a job on big film sets, meeting people and seeing all of that, learning every day on big film sets. Because of the technical bent of the university, I learned how to be a set lighting tech sort of by osmosis. So I benefit greatly on a personal level and a financial level from the technical bent of the school.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Same with me. It's just sort of it's always sad that I see, like, I have, like, you know, I'll know a really talented director who goes to SCAD, and then like they get to the, you know, the end of their courses and they're like, but where's the rest for me? I guess.
Yeah, for sure.
Is my criticism.
Yeah.
I agree.
A lot of good stuff here, guys. Sorry, were you not finished?
Oh no, I was gonna say that I know a lot of people who go to like New York film schools in New York or whatever, and then, you know, they don't even shoot a movie for like the first year. They just watch movies constantly and talk about them.
And I think that's valuable too.
No, absolutely.
Like art criticism. I just think, yeah, I think like the sort of like the lesson of all of this is just like you're gonna learn a lot of different tools. And no matter what you're doing, you should have your eyes set on what it is you are really aspiring to do, and you shouldn't let go of that feeling.
Yeah. But also be prepared to have a job, you know, doing maybe that and maybe not.
Well, thank you guys so much for I always think I have like this great closing statement, and then I don't. It just turns out to be like, anyway, thank you guys so much for talking today about film. Did not expect a lot of your answers, so that's really interesting. It's cool to see like how similar it is in some areas, like overall with our SCAD experience, but it's definitely really different. So yeah, thank you so much for those of you who tuned in today, and I think I'm going to try to do a motion media one next. We'll see, that or advertising. Most of the advertising people I'm talking to are still in school right now, so I might have to wait until after finals are over. So that's what's up. But anyway, thanks for watching.
Yeah.